So, why did you choose a particular year of 2079, and why was she 102? Were there
Yeah.
any motivations for those?
I mean, to be honest, it was a little arbitrary. I should probably say there was some grand scheme. I wanted her to be elderly. I mean, I wanted her to be at the end of her life. But I also wanted it to be far enough into the future that that we could really get this kind of nostalgic perspective. And she's really looking back over her life. And in doing that, I really wanted the reader to kind of have that opportunity to do the same sort of reflection that Fiona does, but without being 102 years old. And so I guess I was kind of pushing it to extremes a little bit in making her 102. And, I mean, also the idea that in the future, medical advances have been made and she can comfortably live to 102 and still be standing in front of an audience giving coherent answers to questions, which, knock on wood, we'll both be doing when we're 102. But the main motivation for that was to allow Fiona to really have this backwards, nostalgic, sort of taking stock of her life perspective on the story.
Was it easy to stop yourself from doing the same thing while you were writing the book, or did it get caught up with each other?
I definitely did the same thing. I think when you're writing a book about family, it's hard not to think about your own and to go through the same kind of reflection that Fiona does. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to give the readers that opportunity too. Because I think it's important. We get kind of caught up in the day-to-day, and it's good to take a step back and just sort of sit and be quiet and think about what is really important.
Did you ever feel kind of intimidated trying to bite off a 100-year chunk of a family's history?
Oh yeah, I felt really intimidated. I mean, there were, I wrote this book 3 times, and the first 2 versions were very different, and there were a lot of weeks and months, and I might even say years, when I didn't know if I could do it. I didn't know if I could write, if I could, create the kind of book that I wanted to create, which was this epic family drama that focused on these sibling relationships and how they changed over time. It was definitely challenging, but those are the kinds of books that I love to read. I love epic family novels, and so I just kind of kept putting my butt in the chair in front of the laptop and
Do you remember the moment when the approach kind of came to you, how it would work eventually?
Well, a little bit, yeah. I mean, in terms of the future Fiona framing, like to have Fiona 102 years old, I was somewhere in the 3rd draft. I mean, I handed this book in twice to my editor, and twice she said, no. I mean, she said a little bit more than that, but basically it was no. So I sort of had to go back to the drawing board. For the third version, I literally put everything else aside and just opened a blank document and typed chapter 1. And I started, it was in the final version that I created I really went into their childhoods in the section that is now called The Pause in the novel. And as I was sort of finding these characters and really thinking about the problems that I wanted them to face, I really wanted to look at contemporary characters and contemporary women in particular. But I also wanted to do this epic kind of 100-year stretch. And those 2 narrative goals were really in conflict. And that was one of the main problems of my first 2 drafts, was that it had this kind of nostalgic tone to it, but it was women, of today. It was contemporary, it was characters with kind of contemporary problems. So it just didn't sound right. It just wasn't working. And so I remember when I had this kind of aha moment about, what if Fiona was narrating from the future? And it seemed like I could have my cake and eat it too. I could have this really taking stock of one's life kind of perspective, but I could also look at modern day characters and people like me and my sisters and my friends and the kind of struggles that we all are having.